Segment 5, we are drawing to the sort of grand finale here, sort of the finish of it. We're going to talk here about segment 5. This one is 14.6 miles. It's 1,900 feet up, 2,100 feet down. A lot of that happens because you're going down into Kenosha Pass at the very end of this. This is a segment that is jam-packed with aspen groves and aspen trees, which is good to know. Specifically, when you get out there, you're going to start figuring out that aspen trees are terrific for things like blocking wind if it's a really windy day, but it also can be tough because aspen trees block wind if it's a really hot day. They also require a lot of moisture. So when you see aspen trees, they're often in really densely packed dirt and soil that has a lot of moisture, so the humidity can get really hot. So just know that kind of going in. Kind of to Matt Hibby's point earlier, it would also make a really terrific fall hike. So if you're in the area, it's really easy to access as well. So you can get out there and do that segment anytime in the fall and do it as a day hike, especially if you have two people to shuttle cars to the start and end of it. So it's a really cool segment, and it's also nice because it's going to mark the sort of end of that first grind where you're then going to head into Georgia Pass, and the next segment is the first time you're going to go up above tree line. So this is the last segment where you will basically start getting glimpses of what it's like above tree line before you actually start crushing it above tree line. So let's take a look here. My first tips when I did this 3 years ago, first is to pack for a stop. And what I meant by that is most people stop somewhere around Kenosha, even if it's just to hitch into Jefferson, which is 4 miles from the Kenosha Pass crossing. And so pack for a stop. So what that means is if you're going to go into town, which I would recommend at this point, even if it's just Jefferson, eat all the snacks you can. Wake up and eat them all, take all your trash and collect it, store it separately, get all your electronics you want to charge and put those on top so that when you get in, you don't have to do what they call a garage sale, which is when you empty out your whole backpack. Typically it's in a place where you don't want to have to empty your whole backpack. So, kind of making sure that you are spending a little bit of that time preparing for the next day with all the great stuff coming. You can also go from there into the town of Fairplay. That one's not super hard to catch a hitch. It's just farther. So I think it's about 19 miles from the trail to Fairplay. There are hotels in Fairplay where there are not in Jefferson. You can also, from that hostel there in Bailey, they will run shuttles from there as well. And I believe it's about $25. So if you are concerned about hitching, that hostel in Bailey is a really great option, specifically because they'll come pick you up at Kenosha and drop you back off at Kenosha. And so I really recommend it. It's also a great place for trail magic. And so there are often people out there with trail magic. When I went there, there were a couple of folks doing trail magic, or there was one folks with her dog doing trail magic. And it was, she brought cupcakes that were so delicious, I decided to marry her. So Kenosha Pass is just a terrific spot to go for a lot of different reasons. You're going to get to this sort of campground. There is camping there that's first come, first serve. So if you have cash, you want to take that because it is self-register there at the campground. I don't know the cost of it, but typically what I do if I'm on a backpacking trip is I try to carry about $50, and maybe 15 of it is in ones, or 10 is in ones, and then fives, and kind of break it up so that if you get there and it's $12, you don't have to pay for you don't have to pay more because they can't make change. Next is review your gear setup. So think about all the stuff you have. And if it's not in that list of the 10 essentials, it might be time to start thinking about sending it home. Now, the post office there in Jefferson is small, and I believe they only operate half the day. So if you're not there by noon, you might be stuck with it. But this is a great time to start thinking about what you can send home. And even if you don't get to send it home here, knowing that, maybe you brought, say, a Kindle, and at this point you're thinking, all right, well, I haven't used the Kindle yet because I've been too tired. So in the next segment 6 will take you all the way to Breckenridge. If I don't use it by Breckenridge, I'm sending it home because I'm 20% of the way there and I haven't used it once. It's not worth the wait. It's also a great time to think about gear that you might want to change or adjust because, again, in Breckenridge, Dillon coming up, you will have an opportunity there to stop by the REI. There are a couple of outdoor stores there as well. So it's a good one. Now, for those of you who are maybe you've got a little more money and you're able to spend and splurge a little bit. If you do go into town, say Jefferson, that's a great time to look at 2 days and go ahead and book a hotel in Frisco, or book a hotel in go ahead and book a hotel in Breckenridge, or that hostel in Breckenridge. There is the Bivy Hostel in Breckenridge, is one of the nicest hostels I've ever stayed in. It is worth knowing, though, they don't answer phones. So if you need to make any changes, you're kind of out of luck there, but it is a terrific hostel. Now, start thinking about sending home that used gear. That's what I mentioned to you all 2-3 years ago. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of my tips here. And the first one is to avoid camping right at the start of segment 5. There are a number of camping spots right there at the start of segment 5. They're typically really full, very small, and there are a ton of cat holes everywhere. So it's such a sort of pinch point for users there that you are better off picking up some water and moving on down the trail. Or alternately, you can grab some water, and there's a forest road near there. So you can go down the forest road a little ways, and there are a lot of camping spots along that forest road, and then just come back in and hop back on the trail the next morning. A lot of good camping through here, but that start of segment 5 is not good camping. Typically speaking, you're going to end up on a slope or sharing cat holes with somebody, and that's not anything anybody wants. Now, there is sometimes cell service available, particularly for those Verizon folks out there at the top of the second rise. And you'll know when you're at the top of the second rise. There are 2 big climbs in the segment, and there's at the top of that segment rise, or the second rise, you're going to be able to see Jefferson off to the left. It's at the top of that is where you want to turn on your cell phone if you're trying to get messages in and you don't have a Zolio or an InReach or something of the sort. Now, I'm not sure here if you all know this or not, but if you do get into Jefferson, which, as the Mad Hippies point out, there are a ton of locals who go there to Kenosha Pass. It's on a U.S. highway. I believe it's 285, passes right through there. That U.S. highway is very easy to get a hitch in. It's really busy, so be careful when you cross it because it is kind of a blind crossing. I think they're working on a bridge over it for hikers in the future, but that's years and years away. Now, if you get into the town of Jefferson, which is about 4 miles to the south of the trail, there's a market there called the Jefferson Market, and it's incredible. It's one of the most welcoming places for hikers on the entire trail. Just to give you a picture of what things were like last year when I got there, I had my backpack, walk in, and you never know, right? You never know how a place is going to respond to hikers, because there are hikers who misbehave or have a sense of entitlement, or cause a ruckus. There are those folks, not typically on the CT, but there are folks like that. So you don't know if maybe they've had bad experiences with hikers in the past. And anyway, I have my backpack on, and there's a woman working there, and she walks outside for something, sees me, and says, "Come on in. We've got this place to leave your bag. We've got plugs over there to charge up. We've got food here. Here's how you order. Here's how you pay." The whole thing was just phenomenal. So when you get into Jefferson, not only do I recommend going there to the Jefferson Market, but I also recommend here that it's a great idea at that market to take good care of them, right? So just be kind to them, be nice to them. If they do ask for it, I don't think they ask for a tip, but if there is an opportunity to tip, which I believe there is, be generous if you're able. And if you do see Lee, like I did, Lee, I think if I'm remembering correctly, you might have been just off of maybe the Florida Trail hike. Was that you that I met? I think you were doing some pretty incredible hikes, and maybe even a sailing trip or two, if I'm remembering correctly. But just terrific. It was great to see you, Lee. Hope you're doing well there. And apologies if I'm confusing you with someone else, but I do remember sitting in, I think you had a bag of chips with you, if I'm remembering correctly. But that market is just terrific. Sorry, Lee. My apologies. But I do remember meeting you, and I remember where you were sitting. I was in the booth, and you were at the table there to the right. So Jefferson Market is absolutely incredible. Definitely stop there and be kind to those folks. Let's make sure that they still stay welcoming to us, because the best thing we can do for future hikers is to take good care of the folks that are already taking care of us. So that covers it here for segment 5. I hope that's been helpful to you all. I don't know if I actually did I share my video of segment 5 with you all? let's go ahead and take a peek at that one real quick. You're going to see those aspens that we were talking about. This is a little bit of a time lapse here, and this is at the end of a really tough climb. So you'll know this spot when you get there. It's the end of the first climb. And so when you get here, you're going to know it. It's just absolutely beautiful, but it can be a really tough one. And then you can see here where the climb continues. And then you're going to hit lots and lots of those aspen groves through here as you make your way to Kenosha. You'll start seeing day hikers somewhere in the vicinity here. They're going to start making, they're going to start making their way up to the top of that rise. You're not going to see them past that first rise. Typically, they'll go from Kenosha to the top and then kind of turn around and go to their car. Now, if you are looking for a ride, that's a great place to start drumming up conversations with folks and saying, hey, I'm hiking the Colorado Trail. And then as you talk to them, eventually, a lot of times they'll offer to give you a ride to wherever you need to go because they have their car there. And especially you'll feel more comfortable if you meet some people and get to feel them out as well. So that's segment 5. It's absolutely terrific. And it is heading into segment 6, which is one of my absolute favorites of the first 100 miles or so. It's stunning, has some really great stuff going on it. So here